An old English fairy tale relates that once upon a time, the town of Frenchville was overrun by rats. There were rats, rats, and rats everywhere. All means to get rid of the rats were unsuccessful. One day, a stranger appeared in the council hall of the village and offered to get rid of the rats. He asked for a large sum of money. The mayor and the town elders, desperate due the cries of the people, accepted. The man then took out a flute and, moving along Main Street, began to play a tune. And as each note pierced the air, you might have seen a strange sight, for out of every hole all the rats came tumbling. They followed the piper out of town until he led them tumbling down a cliff and into the sea, where they all perished. When the piper came back into the town, there was rejoicing and celebration. He went up the steps of the council building and asked for his money. The mayor and the elders now tried to persuade him to take a much lesser amount of money, as they figured that they couldn't pay such a large sum of money to a fellow whose only task was to blow a pipe. And besides, they were rid of the rats anyway. After disagreements and the failure of the elders to pay the piper the agreed sum, he left in a huff and then went out, and as he left along Main Street, he began to play his pipe. And as he paced down the streets, the elders mocked, but from schoolroom and playroom, from nursery and workshop, not a child but run out with eager glee and shout, following gaily at the piper's call, dancing, laughing, joining hands and tripping feet. The bright throng moved along up Gold Street and beyond Silver Street and into the forest, where piper and children disappeared forever, never to bin again. Dancing to the tune of the Pied Piper became in common parlance a reference for being hypnotically carried away by a willy manipulator. But this is just a fairy tale, you say. Such a thing cannot happen in real life. Ah, those were just children. It's just a story to teach them not to follow strangers. Can such a thing happen to adults? The answer, unfortunately, is a big yes. It happens more often than we are able to accept, and in any case, there has never been and there will never be a person in a hypnotic spell who would ever agree that he/she was under a spell. Take the extreme case of the People's Temple, a cult led by the infamous Jim Jones, and who in 1978 led his followers in a mass suicide ritual that left over 900 dead from drinking a cyanide-laced punch. This, we agree, is an extreme case of mind control, but anyone who has studied closely the methods of evangelicals and cults will agree that mind control and manipulation of members are very widespread practices. To be held in a trance or a mesmeric hold is actually easier than most people are willing to accept. This is because of the nature of the human mind. It has a rational side and an emotional side. Once the emotional side is excited sufficiently, the rational mind tends to withdraw and can even be put to sleep. In television dramas, political rallies, football, and such like mesmeric programming, the eyes of viewers glaze and the emotional mind takes over the whole persona, such that one does not realize he has been taken. This is why in television it is called programming. In the so-called secular world, examples can be drawn from the world of politics, advertising, radio and television, medicine, the army, and such uniformed groups. One of the first telltale signs that should be a warning signal is when you see a uniform. Another warning signal is imprinting using shock and awe, or a continuous incessant drumming of an idea, as, for example, endless advertising of a simplistic idea over and over and over, ad nauseum, until logic and rationality are banished. All that is then left is the one meaningless idea imprinted in mind, as, for example, "Coke is it," or "Stay home." The colonialist program to take over Africa involved the most intensive brainwashing and well-crafted programs of indoctrination of the African mind. Using the 3 C's, Christianity, civilization, and commerce, many of these programs are still in place. Brainwashing involved emptying and cleaning the African mind of anything African. In Gikuyu, they called the new initiates Arutwo, literally meaning those from whom everything has been removed. They became Christians in Gikuyu, Akanitha, or Akani Thai. those who have denied the god of the Gikuyu, Mwene Nyaga. This indoctrination was done very carefully. The two girls and an Italian nun. The girls were made to kneel before the nun and to look up adoringly at the face of the nun. The nun was made to sit on a higher seat, as in a throne, and to take each girl's hand as if to lift them higher up. This is the same thing that they do when they place their virgin or the crucified figure in a high position for the faithful to look up and venerate. The subtle subconscious associations in this picture are not very obvious and are cleverly hidden. Venerate the nun and the Mzungu, white man, for he represents God. Get out of the blackness and look up to the white, Rutwu. This dangerous and profound veneration and adoration led to an unquestioning religious faith of the objects of adoration, in this case, the Mzungu and the Virgin. The photo was first published in the book The Akikuyu, Their Customs, Traditions, and Practices by the Italian father C. Cagnolo, published in 1933. It is no wonder this sinister photograph was removed in the whitewashed edition of the book by the Gikuyu father Wambugu. All the racist language was meticulously removed in the new edition and an apologist tone adopted. But of course, it is no longer Father Cagnolo who is talking, but one of our own. The edition is a white lie from an institution that has a long history of blatant revisionism. Africans are still being manipulated using these methods of teaching them to religiously adore, venerate, and obey authority that comes from Europe and America, be they teachers, priests, doctors, politicians, and other professionals. What the Cagnolo doctor prescribes for us, the Wambugu doctor prescribes without question. What the Cagnolo teacher teaches must be the best, and our Wambugu teacher adds no value. What the Cagnolo lawyer practices must be so just, our Wambugu lawyer swallows, wig, lobes, and all. What our Cagnolo architect designs in Dubai, our Wambugu architects use as case studies. We all remember the hymn, "Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Then in fellowship sweet, we will sit at his feet or will walk by his side in the way. What he says we will do. Where he sends, we will go. Never fear, only trust and obey. Trust the science."